Good evening, everyone, and thank you for being here tonight. We're here for a city council meeting. It's Monday, June 20th, 2022. We'll start this meeting with a roll call and determination of quorum.
Nordstrom.
Here.
Weifenbach. Here. Roberts. Stroman. Here. Armstrong. Here. Jones.
Here.
Lehman. Here. Solomon.
Here.
Evans. Here. Drew. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Next on the agenda is the invocation by Randy Brock, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. Let's pray. Lord, we recognize your presence in this place. You come in with us, and we thank you for being here, Lord God. And what I would pray, Lord Jesus, would be the fruit of the Spirit over everything that's said and done here, Lord Jesus. Love and joy and peace and patience, kindness, Lord, and goodness and faithfulness, gentleness and self-control, Lord. You told us that there is no law against these things. And so we release them, God, over this meeting. Thank you for these servants, Lord, who've said yes to serve our community. I pray blessing over them and everything that they will decide tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Now it's time for adoption of the agenda. This is a time when the council members may adopt the agenda as written or make certain alterations to it. Would there be a motion? Motion by Jones and a second by Lehman to approve the agenda. All in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Any opposed say no. Motion carries. We have a couple of presentations on the agenda tonight. The first one, an update on the Journey Museum and the Shoebox Project.
First of all, I want to make sure I say thank you to a lot of people. City of Rapid City for the support of the Journey Museum from the beginning. We've been celebrating 25 years. We were built in 1997. Laura Armstrong for impressing upon me to come and speak tonight. Bill Evans for being our liaison. And also I have multiple members of our board of directors over here in support. We want to make sure that we absolutely appreciate what the City of Rapid City has done for the museum. And we have been especially honored to be a part of making sure the right things happen during the 50th commemoration of the flood. I'd also like to make sure that I say thank you to Mayor Allender and the commemoration committee. Lots of people worked really, really hard. I think it was an outstanding week of events. June 8th and June 9th, I think, were really well done, and I think our community appreciated all of the efforts that everybody contributed. So thank you all for what you've done. I'd like to make sure, though, that I do provide a shout out to Daryl Shoemaker, your communications person. Daryl really did a great job of connecting and coordinating so many different events, so many different types of personalities, and I think it would not be inappropriate if you guys gave him a round of applause tonight to show him that appreciation. So often when there's something like this, I'm asked as the executive director of a museum, why is this history important? And so I've got a little sound clip here that I think well, I know I want to play for you to help illustrate why history is important. This is the tail end of us wrapping up the commemoration week with Mayor Don Barnett on June 10th. This particular program was also broadcast statewide through the South Dakota State Historical Society. So not only did we reach Rapid City, but we were broadcast throughout the state. Here's a clip on why history is important.
The first of many commemorations to remember the devastating Black Hills flood of 1972 opened today. The Journey Museum unveiled its special exhibit on the flood today. The display features a timeline of events that took place on June 9th, as well as photos and a map of the area impacted by the flood. Journey Executive Director Troy Kilpatrick said although the event was tragic, it brought out resiliency in many Black Hills residents, and he hopes young people can learn from that.
I hope that our younger generations here in Rapid City would understand that the generations before them used a tragedy as motivation to build an even better community. And I think that's an important message that we want to deliver during the 50th.
Kilpatrick said the exhibit will be open through the fall.
So that connects us a little bit to what is the shoebox. The shoebox was kind of the original motivation to this conversation. Who is the shoebox? You can see up here on the screen. Those are some of the people and organizations that have been involved in the conversations. You may ask, why did we pick a term called the shoebox? It refers to the countless number of collections that may exist in Rapid City and in our area that would be literally priceless in terms of what is those memories and what do they mean that even our historical institutions don't know about today. And so we're grappling as different organizations and individuals with how to come to grips with history as more of it is coming towards us. And again, I'm just going to click to a little sound bite here to help us kind of save a little time on tonight's presentation. If I can get that to click.
Preservation of Black Hills culture and heritage is a major mission of the Journey Museum, but with so many items and so little space, it's presenting a huge problem. News Center 1's Christina Holliday tonight with the Shoebox Committee and its quest to find an answer.
According to museum officials, whereas many institutions have only about 5 to 10% of their artifacts on display at one time, the Journey displays most of their collection to the public, with only about 10% of their space devoted to proper storage conditions. The Shoebox Committee aims to change that. According to Journey Museum Director Troy Kilpatrick, the committee was started as a way of gathering local individuals and institutions together that are focused on addressing lack of archive space in Rapid City, along with preserving priceless materials for the public's future viewing.
So here's the challenge. There's really not any available archive space available in those institutions that you saw up there described as the Shoebox group themselves. And so as we move forward, our museum and all of these collaborators, we're building strategic planning here this summer, and I've added a picture of Peggy Schlechter, who is facilitating focus groups, community members and our partners coming together so that we can kind of come to grips with how do we describe and define the solution. Today, we don't have that answer for you guys. We're just talking about how we need to consider investing into the future of our history, and why we talked about why history is important. So this is coming soon, and we will be inviting all of you to be a part of these discussions so that we can hear thoughts on that. Before we do that, though, one more little check and balance, and I appreciate conversations that I've had with different council people about where's the state of South Dakota, how do we align into different parts of this. This is Secretary Jim Hagan. He's the Department of Tourism leader, and I've captured a clip from him that talks about the state of South Dakota's approach to how they're promoting our communities and our spaces to our guests. And so let's listen to Jim.
Here's our target audiences. So still families, our number 1 target audience. Seeing lots and lots of families. The mom is the vacation planner. They have kids in the household, and definitely wanting to get out and experience the great outdoors, but also interested in educational aspects for their children. So whether that be state and national parks, museums, galleries, that's very important to moms and dads. We've got searchers, which are a little bit, they're a younger professional couples, usually, no children in the household. They'll often take last-minute trips. Let's go a weekend trip to South Dakota. Let's go to Rapid City. Let's go to Sioux Falls. Let's go to Aberdeen. They've got a little bit more money to spend, but they too like to they love to experience arts and culture. This is a good group for us. And they just love to get out and see and do. Wanderers are retired couples, have a little bit more discretionary income. We're finding with our wanderers, lots more of them are having their kids move back in with them. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing. So they're probably going to be traveling more if that's a trend we're seeing. But retired couples, a little bit more discretionary income. They love historical sites. They love museums. They love arts and culture. They love state parks and national parks. And then our road trippers, this has just grown tremendously, as you can imagine, over the last 2 years. This is the 4th new segment for us. So more people than ever before in the history of this country are taking road trips, and that's a new target audience for us.
So that clip, just so you guys know, Jim was here in Rapid City in May, so that's a very current clip. It was just released on YouTube, and obviously we just grabbed about a minute and a half there, but it talks all about South Dakota's targets, the State of Create, which is an actual marketing strategy connecting all the arts and culture institutions across the state itself. And so there's big dollars being aligned at the state level with arts and culture and how this all fits together here. So again, now I'm purposely cut this a little short so I can leave some time for some questions. We joked I won't need the music to play here tonight. But in closing, again, we want to say thank you. And the Journey, if you don't know the Journey, we're multiple partners, but we're always very grateful for the city of Rapid City for all that you do. But as I close, why we should continue to look at investing in our arts and culture for our youth is so that they understand our past and can build a better community for all of us going forward. And as we continue to invest in arts and culture, we align with other strategies that help create jobs for not only the young, but the old in our communities, that helps give us an even better community later in the years to come. So I always like to say the journey continues. At the very end, you got to get forced into that. And now I'll leave this open for questions. Thank you again for listening.
Any questions for Mr. Kilpatrick? Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Troy, thanks for the presentation. I guess it goes without saying. I caught you out front and we were talking about, funding for the museum and looking at going to the state. Have you guys even thought about going there to see if you can get some of that legislation changed to be part of that funding mechanism? Or
well, we kind of benefit from that whole funnel, Ron. But I mean, I guess, these types of changes, kind of like the shoebox thing, has to have many, many people at many, many levels engaged in changing funnels of anything like this. What I think I wanted to make sure everybody knew tonight is the state of South Dakota has developed arts and cultural tourism as a significant item. And so how you guys impact that here is with your support of the Journey. We're a player with the state of South Dakota because we align with what the state of South Dakota's tourism is doing. We're constantly engaged at the state level in offering what they call familiarization or FAM tours and experiences related to that. We've also aligned with the Native Travel Tourism Alliance that has been forming here. We hosted their first meeting. A lot of these things happen without all of you being aware, but your investment in us helps us sustain those positions in those conversations.
Sure, and I think it goes without saying that the arts community, the Journey, and everybody with a collaborative effort brings a lot of people to our community. That's why I keep suggesting the fact of looking at the funding mechanisms that are out there. If we have to go to legislation to get it changed, it's got to start somewhere. So I appreciate the presentation tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Ron.
Darla Drew.
Thank you, and I'm sorry that I came in late tonight. Troy, are your bus tours back up to where they were before the COVID?
The numbers are trending in a really good way. when I look back at 2019 attendance numbers, we're a little bit off at this point. The bus numbers were definitely impacted early in 2021 without the vaccines out there. So we didn't really see that bus traffic come back until the very end of the summer. But we did and have had buses fairly strongly early on. We've maintained the relationships even though we're only open 5 days a week, that if a bus group contacts us, we're open for them. We will pull a team together, we'll get volunteers together. So as an example, we're closed tomorrow, but we're hosting 4 buses.
Oh, and so just so that the council can know, how many bus tours do you usually see in an average season? Like say it's normal times again.
Okay, I'll avoid the word normal.
Okay.
But back in 2019, we would have had close to 350 groups, and a group was about an average of 48 that would be on a motor coach. That would have been what we would have been looking at in 2019.
Yeah, that's how important this is to our community, to bring in those bus tours. You know, I'm sorry about Yellowstone, but I hope that maybe that'll encourage people to come to the Black Hills. I took my grandsons there about a month ago. They had a great time in, you know, seeing the new dinosaur exhibits and doing some of the digging things there with, what is that new material you have? It's made out of, is it made out of tires or?
It's a rubber matrix, so yeah, I think it's made out of recycled tires.
Well, it's cool enough to let them dig without getting dirty, so. Yeah, we had a really great time there. We spent a couple hours, so thank you for all the work you've done towards making this a good experience for children as well. I know it's great for bus tours, but you know, for moms and dads that come in, want to see some of our history, it's really good to be able to entertain the kiddos for a while as well. So thank you for that, and I yield.
Thank you for the kind words.
Looks like all the questions, so thank you, Troy, for being here tonight.
Again, thank you, and thanks everybody for, I believe it was a really fantastic commemoration week, and we appreciate your support, so thank you.
Item 2 on the agenda is the annual bridge inspection program report from Bros Engineering.
Good evening, folks. In way of introductions, I'm Bruce Wilsey. This is Spencer Doctor, Bros Engineering. If I look familiar, it's because I was here, it seems like just yesterday, but I guess it was almost a year ago. Although it's a requirement by our work order with the South Dakota Department of Transportation to be here and present information to the owners and the shareholders of these structures, it is our pleasure to be here, and it's our hope to be able to answer any questions that may come from our presentation here related to your structures. I will be brief because, quite frankly, what we see is a great improvement in the structural integrity of the structures here in Rapid City. Over the years, you know, I've been doing this for, I don't know, 8-10 years here now, and the staff has done a really great job with maintenance, and so it makes, you know, our work a lot more brief, if you will, and it'll make our presentation tonight fairly brief. In way of explanation, I guess we did present staff, Dale and with Sarah Odden and staff, our complete list of bridge reports. I believe there were 31 structures or something that we looked at. And so we've condensed, but we have condensed what we call, into a single document that we call our significant findings that we just like to bring attention to specific issues related to given structures. I believe Dale passed out a packet for you. And in way of, I guess, questions and answers, if we could, I think it might be a little easier. If you have any questions related to a specific structure, we'll kind of pause as we go through this at the end of each structure and maybe give everyone a chance to ask those questions then, if that works for you. All that being said, if you don't mind, we'll go ahead and start on the structure number 52-372-320. The structure's on the west edge of town, Idlehurst Lane. This particular structure may look familiar because I think I've presented on it the last couple of years or times I've done this. It's a timber beam structure, a fairly old structure. There's nothing really structurally concerning about this structure, but we do have a crack in one or two of the beams. And Spencer could probably speak a little more to that if you have questions about the structural capacity of it. This bridge only really serves one residence, I believe, and so it doesn't get, significant truck traffic or anything of that nature. Spencer, you want to take the next one?
Yep. So the next one, if you turn a couple pages, we also included a map after each one of these bridges, so you can kind of see where it's at, if you're curious. But we'll move on to 52-375-296. This is probably the worst bridge in the city. It's on San Marco Boulevard. And as you can see in those pictures, there is some pretty significant deterioration going on the underside of the bridge. There's some, rebar and pre-stressing strands that are severely corroded, and to the point where they're severed all the way through. And so what we did on this one this year is we lowered the load rating on this bridge to 3 tons. And then we also, after talking to Roger Hall and the guys with Public Works, we decided to basically close off half the bridge. And we made it a single lane bridge, and we diverted all the traffic onto what we consider to be the good beams. And so we are confident that as it sits right now, it's safe, and they can probably, after our meeting today with Dale Tech, they talked to the DOT, and it sounds like potentially this could be under construction as soon as next year. So we're confident that that 3 ton, and by moving the vehicles to the good beams, that this structure is safe for the the next year or 2. So we'll look at it again next year, but we're pretty confident in that 3 ton, and it's a safe bridge as it sits. So
moving on to the structure 378-315 on Chapel Lane. This bridge is it's on a one-way in, one-way out roadway, and this is one we've been watching for several years because there has been some concrete deterioration beneath some bearing points. In other words, where the load is transferred into the substructure, into the abutments. This is a cause for concern. This isn't something that is going to cause any kind of catastrophic issues or anything like that, but it's reaching an age where we're discussing, what can be done to probably replace this structure. We discussed that today as well. There has been a PE grant with the DOT, bridge improvement grant has been accepted, and obviously that's in a study phase, if you will.
So if you turn a couple more pages to 391-316, this structure is on Tomahawk Drive, and this is essentially the exact same structure on San Marco Boulevard. The only difference is this one is in much, much better shape. But it does have some deterioration on it, as you can see by those pictures. It's got some, what we call spalling. Spalling is basically when concrete starts falling away and breaking away from the rest of the structure. And that's what you can see in that top picture there, and on the bottom one. And so for that reason, this was the first time we inspected the structure was 2 years ago. It got added to the system, and at that point we put a load rating of 12, of a load rating of SU 12 and combination 20. That's what we put on it 2 years ago. The SU stands for single unit, so it's anything without a trailer. Is 12 tons on this bridge, and then if it has a trailer, that's considered a combination, and that has a load of 20 tons on it. And so we have this on the list because most likely in the next, 5-10 years, this thing is going to start deteriorating at the same rate as the San Marco Bridge. So we just want it on the radar, and yeah.
The next structure that we're going to talk about is on Somerset Drive. This is a small steel beam bridge, steel stringer bridge. If anybody's familiar with it, it's kind of a fake truss, we call it. It's just a truss in shape only. It doesn't function as a truss bridge. This structure, it's got precast concrete panel deck. and what we're seeing there, and we've watched this one also over the last number of years, where it's the concrete has got advancing deterioration. Notice this year it seemed to be progressing at a little faster rate than what we've seen before. We discussed with staff about, future, potential of replacement. I understand it could be impacted by some work on Sheridan Lake Road. So that one I expected maybe there might be a question, but just wanted to let you know that we're watching it, and it's not something, again, none of these are in a condition that is any kind of a catastrophic concern, if you will. They're just advancing aged structures. So.
So the next one is 412298. Overall, this bridge is in really good shape. Our only concern on this one is the pedestrian rail in the northwest corner of the bridge has it's became detached from the rest of the structure. And so we talked with your guys' staff this morning, and they're going to see, they're going to get it fixed. So.
And the last one we'll talk about is on Creek Drive, southeast corner of town. This structure, the only reason I put in the significant findings portion of our work is just we noted some new cracking on some pre-stressed girder beam sections or leg sections, if you will, of some pre-stressed girders. We had some new cracking, and we noted that there was a significant amount, if you will, of truck traffic, and it just we felt that it was good to bring it to everyone's attention that this could have the potential for worsening over time. So I guess that's pretty much what we saw that's worth really discussing. If you have any questions, we'll certainly answer them.
Okay, it looks like we have some questions or comments. We'll start with Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. We really appreciate the report. Very glad to hear that there are no potential for catastrophic incidents. That's what you always think about bridges going bad, so that's very good to hear. So thank you. Mayor, may I direct a question to Director Tech?
Yes, please.
Thank you very much. Director Tech, of the two bridges here that we've received grants for, could you just tell us a little bit about what's going to happen with those and what we can expect in the next year or two?
Sure. The San Marco Bridge, the Department of Transportation, as I understand it, will be responsible for doing the design work on that bridge and then letting it for bid. That is in process right now. As Spencer indicated, we believe it would be under construction next year. And then the second bridge was the Chapel Lane Bridge. There's a big grant was awarded, and Bruce mentioned that for the PE, and that stands for Preliminary Engineering. So that will be coming up soon. Construction unknown. We did find out recently, just in the last week, about a grant opportunity through the federal highway. It's called the BIP program, and this structure might fit perfectly for that, and we may be able to get grant dollars, federal grant dollars, to replace that structure or to repair it as necessary. So it's called a BIP, a Bridge Investment Program, I believe is what it's called.
Laura Armstrong.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, gentlemen, for coming here and explaining this to us. May I direct some questions to Director Tech?
Yes, please.
Mr. Tech, what do we do with this other information on these other structures? What do you foresee, and do we prioritize? If you could just walk this through.
Certainly. As Bruce and Spencer indicated, these are their findings of the worst, which isn't that bad. I believe Bruce mentioned there are 31 total structures that we have. So we get a report on each one of those structures every 2 years. And the ones that are a little worse shape, they inspect every year. So every year we receive the updated information, our staff reviews it, and if it's appropriate, we program it for either major rehabilitation, or if it's something as simple as reattaching a bridge rail, we have our folks do that. So every year we have an internal process where we are reviewing the information that is provided to us via the inspection program and taking appropriate action.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I yield.
I would like to just touch a little on what Dale just said, in that we have the annual structure. Every structure in the United States is inspected every 2 years, basically in a minimum. And the 1 year cycles, the 12-month cycles, like the San Marco Bridge, we have one of them, that's San Marco, and that's it. That's all you have for something that requires annual attention rather than biannual attention. Just so you're
How many does Sioux Falls have?
I don't really know off the top of my head.
We probably have less, right?
Yes. I couldn't speak to it. It's been a long time since I've inspected Sioux Falls bridges, I'm afraid. But yeah, they're, you know.
Let's just say a lot.
If you want to compare notes, we got all kinds of counties you compare to, but we won't go there.
All right, Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I direct a question to Director Tech?
Yes, please.
Director Tech, in addition to Councilor Armstrong's question about priority, which is good, do we take traffic into consideration with regards to prioritization of projects?
Well, for bridges, it's condition. And certainly, you know, we keep an eye on the reports and at what rate is it deteriorating. So that is the main driver. Certainly if it's a major, well, for instance, the very first structure that was on the list serves one home.
Right.
That's pretty low priority. And condition-wise, it's okay. So, but Chapel Lane, for instance, once again, it's a dead end, one-way in. We're going to keep a close eye on it, but it falls right in line with all of the other structures that we look at. And when it's time to do work on it, we'll do the appropriate work on it.
So beyond condition of the bridges, we take into consideration the situation as well as the traffic and the neighborhood. I think Chapel Lane.
Most certainly. In fact, as part of the big grant programming, all of those factors weigh into whether or not, well, I shouldn't say whether or not, but the priority that the state gives in funding to those structures as well.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. I believe this will be going to Director Tech as well. Oh, by the way, gentlemen, thank you very much for the presentation. Appreciate it. One I'm interested in is the one on Creek Drive, about a half a mile south of a St. Patrick Street and intersection. The way I'm hearing the responses of your previous questions, this one might fall in that category of not a high priority, not a low priority, but somewhere in between.
Well, bridges are like people. They're all different, and they change differently, and the structure fits right into that. So what they've observed since the last time they inspected it is I won't say a rapid change, but a noticeable change from the last time they did it. So the delta of change is concerning to them, and that's why it made it to the list. Doesn't mean that that bridge is going to collapse. It just means that, hey, this is happening to this structure. It's extraordinary. Let's keep an eye on it. So I guess that's the best way to respond to your question, Alderman Nordstrom.
And I think what you did explain, Dale, is what we attempted to do with what we're presented tonight, to let you know these are significant findings, just as their title says. It doesn't necessarily even mean everything requires an action, even a maintenance action. This is what we find. It may mean it'll be up to us or any future bridge inspectors. This is a running document. They will see these notes, and it allows anybody inspecting that bridge the next cycle pay close attention to this. That's a large part of what this is about. Not just about, hey, we got to go spend money on this stuff. Some of this is notations to staff and to future inspectors that this is out there, just so you're aware of it.
I really appreciate the explanation or the annotation that you're putting on the end of this, because the people in that area, I'm sure, will be piqued of interest on what is happening with this bridge, because I believe we have some truck traffic down in that area as well, some heavy load traffic. So your explanation is very worthwhile for the public to hear that information, that we won't have to worry about it today or tomorrow. It's just something to keep an eye on.
Correct.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
I just have a question either for you guys or Mr. Tech, because I really don't know the answer. I noticed that on most of these bridges, you see the big steel members really rusting and everything, and I'm sure most of that's just service rust and everything. And most of the problems are with the decking, the roadway. But do they do any maintenance on these steel members once they're installed, or you build the bridge and then they're just never ever looked at and maintained? Is that standard practice?
I'll answer that. No, there's, on many instances, bridges are repainted. We don't do it a lot because our condition doesn't drive that necessarily, but in the past, we certainly have had contracts where we have sandblasted and repainted the steel members. So that's not uncommon. We haven't done it recently, primarily driven by the condition of the bridge and not necessarily needing it.
When you have steel, painted steel in particular, that's exposed to any kind of salt or salt water, you know, from salting the roadways in the wintertime, you'll see that kind of beginning corrosion. Where we begin to get concerned about is when we see section loss. In other words, where the corrosion is so active that it's essentially eating away at the steel. We didn't note any of that even in this structure. If there is any, it's pretty insignificant section loss. So, you know, painting a structure where you continue to have salt exposure, you know, roadway water exposure, may be throwing good money after bad, particularly looking at it from a long-term perspective.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, looks like all the questions we have from council. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on with the agenda. Now we have general public comment. This is a time for members of the public to discuss or express concerns to the council on any issue not on the agenda. Action will not be taken at this meeting on any issue not on the agenda, except by placement on the agenda by unanimous vote of the city council members present. So we have a few speaker request forms. The first one is from Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So I wanted to take a minute tonight and talk about a little something that is really under my skin, and I want to invite the community to try to do something about. We are getting more and more issues of tagging and graffiti and that kind of thing around our town, and it's very much degrading the star of the West that we love to call Rapid City. And I encourage people, when they see this, to report it to the police, because they can't do anything about it if they don't know. And the police take these calls, they use the information to determine high problem areas, assign resources to it. So please, when you observe a building, of pole, something that has been tagged or graffitied or spray painted or something in an inappropriate manner, please call the non-emergency Rapid City dispatch number and report it, because it's very important that our police department know about it. But the responsibility of the citizens does not end there. We have a responsibility to dive in and do something about it. Now, I happen to carry around a can of spray paint with me in the Patmobile. And when I see some inappropriate graffiti or tagging or something in an area, I cover it because I'm offended by it. And I'm not going to let my neighborhood and my area or any place that I go be taken over by these creeps and thugs and punks who think it's cool to tag in our city. It's not. It doesn't belong here. It's got no business being here. So who are we going to let win as a community? Are we going to let the creeps and the thugs and the punks win, thinking they can just go spray paint and tag anywhere they want in our community? Or are we going to step up to the plate and notify our police department and step in and do something about it? Do we have the guts and the courage, or are we just going to sit back and say, wow, someone's spray painting our town? Well, we can step up and do something about it. A can of spray paint, which is available in several colors, doesn't cost that much, and it's a great way for us to step up and take it back and say we're not going to tolerate this. So I encourage people to step up. When you see it, report it, and don't be afraid to get out there and scrub something off or paint it properly so it looks nice again. There was an article in the Journal not too long ago about the almost daily destruction and vandalism of our parks. And so it's time for us to take our community back and not just sit back and wait for someone else to do it, but for us to take an active role and get after it ourselves. I encourage all of us as citizens of Rapid City to do it, and let's start making a difference. I'm very proud that our police department is going to be working with local business to provide high-pressure spraying and cleaning service to start taking an aggressive stand on this. But they can't go on to a private business and do that. It's up to the private business owner to do it. So I encourage them to do it as well. And let's just start making a difference and take our town back and not tolerate this kind of stuff anymore. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, next speaker request is from Colleen Reagan. While you're walking up there, I didn't explain it, but the speakers tonight will have 3 minutes, and you can watch these lights up here to see how you're doing.
Good evening. My name is Colleen Reagan. I live in Ward 2, and I'm a small business owner. I've lived in Rapid City for the last 15 years. I also lived here for 3 and 9 years previously, for a total of 27 years. I love this town, and I have deep ties in the community. The reason I'm addressing you is to share my astonishment at your recent vote to approve health care insurance for City Council members. I understand that there is a thought that free health care insurance might be an incentive for people to run for City Council. I may be naive, but I thought these positions are entered into as a service for the public to act in our best interest, to examine issues thoughtfully and with great care, vote in the best interest of the city and the community. Public service is not high-paying, and few residents can sacrifice their time to serve on our behalf. I can only imagine the difficulty of weighing the many aspects of governing, and I appreciate your willingness to tackle what must often feel like a thankless job. However, what I expect from you is thoughtful consideration and not rapid approval of a costly plan without input from your constituents. I do not believe that the incentive of free health insurance paid by me and every other taxpayer in the city is a realistic carrot to encourage people to run for office. From my observations of elected public officials, the best of them are in it to truly serve, and many others are in it for power and a chance to push personal agendas and political positions. I expect better of you, and I believe you can rethink this issue. Some of you must qualify for Medicare, and the rest of you need to get health insurance the same way your constituents do, through your job, your spouse's job, or pay for it the same way we do. I believe that the money you approved for your insurance will certainly benefit you, but it will not serve our best interests, and it will not draw people into making the commitments you have made. With as many issues requiring top-dollar investment, the health insurance you will receive will take away from more pressing concerns. I believe that transparency in government on all levels is critical to a healthy infrastructure and inspiring confidence in your ability to act on our behalf. I urge you to rescind your approval of this health insurance perk before it swiftly goes into practice in July. Your decision was self-serving and not well considered. Please rescind tonight. If you can vote in the issue in one meeting without deeper thought, you can certainly undo the vote this evening. Thank you for your consideration in this matter and for the time allotted me to express my opinion.
Thank you. And that'll bring it into the general public comment period. And now we're on to non-public hearing items, items 3 through 47. And we'll open public comment on items 3 through 38. We have one speaker request on item 19, and that is Mr. Ted Standing Soldier. So you have 3 minutes now, sir, and then when we take this item up, the council members may have more questions for you, and you might get more chance to talk at that time. Okay?
Great. Thank you. As you stated, my name is Ted Standing Soldier. I've been living in Rapid City since 2017. I moved up here from Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, and I do a lot of coaching and youth mentorship here in the community through various programs like Sager Hoops and Fellowship of Christian Athletes. And I'm a single dad, 2 boys, 13 and 8 years old. I had a few pieces of wood laying in my backyard and a few ply boards, which I had planned to build my boys a tree house. And I remember getting a notice in the mail saying I had 1 week to pick it up, and I didn't get a pickup truck in time, and it probably took 30 minutes tops for it to pick it up. But my question tonight is the amount of the bill for $575, and I didn't know if that was a mistake or if that's something that's normal, because the paper I received said $50 per hour, and I know it took less than an hour to pick it up, and I'm not sure if I'm paying for their whole day of work or how that works. So I'm just wondering if there's any way I can contest this. I guess that's kind of first thing I done was how do I contest it, because that's what the letter stated, and they told me to come here tonight. So that's my spill.
Okay, thank you. Stick around. And that'll bring the public comment period to a close, and we'll take up consent items now 3 through 38. So would the council have items they wish to remove from consent?
We'll pull on item number 19, Mr. Mayor.
Any other items from council? Darla Drew.
It's already on to 19, thank you.
Fine. Okay, then may we have a motion from council then to approve the consent items with the exception of 19?
So moved.
Motion by Lehman.
Second.
Second by Weifenbach. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, approve resolution number 2022-041, a resolution levying assessment for abatement of nuisances. Jason Solomon.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Would I direct this question to Director Fisher? Is that with
Yes,
code
that would be a
enforcement?
good place to start.
Director Fisher, you know, that his stance being that he got a pretty significant bill, $575, wonders if at $50 an hour that was the appropriate rate. Do you have any insight into that?
So I did have the invoice pulled just moments ago to kind of go through the detail of it. So the property owner was put on notice that he needed to remove the debris after the city received a complaint. We inspected the site. We submitted a citation. On the citation, it clearly says that you have X number of days and you need to contact the manager of the division. It gives Matt's name and phone number. So if there's a reason, such as I don't have a vehicle right now, it might take me longer, or we've got a family emergency, there's many things, but we always try to work with the property owner. In this instance, we were not contacted, and so one of the 2 companies that we use was called, and they abated the property. The invoice shows that there were 4 man-hours charged. There were 2 men on site. They removed 1,200 pounds of construction and yard debris, concrete, and metal fence posting. That included what it took to take it from the property, the equipment used, the hauling to the landfill, and then when we get to the landfill, it's got to be separated out. It's not as if they can just back up and dump it in one location, and so that attributes to the 4 man-hours. So this is a standard fee. It's probably also important to note that there is a late fee that is not shown on your assessment this evening of $100. And so this got added on at request, and at some point, if you do uphold the abatement, then it would actually be for $100 more. Pauline does have the authority to waive that late fee, and I have the authority to waive the administrative fee, but we do not have the authority to waive the fee that's been paid out to the company that provided the services, and staff would strongly urge you to uphold that. It sets a precedent for others, and they did qualify the expenditures.
Okay. Mr. Standing Soldier, well, I only have 2 minutes left. Did you want to take any time to respond to the information provided? Just want to make sure you're able to speak into this.
Yeah, I got one thing on the email I received. If I pull it up here, from Cassandra Johnson. She said, "We will hold off on applying late fees to this invoice until the hearing of June 20th. The hearing will take place at 6:30 p.m.
Okay. I'll yield my time. Thank you.
I want to make a motion, but I also have some questions, so I just want to make sure I do this in the correct order.
Make the motion and retain the floor. Someone will.
Okay.
I'll
I
second.
think I want to make a motion to waive the administrative and late fees for this gentleman.
Okay, we have
Get a
second
second?
by Weifenbach, and you still have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much for walking me through that. This gentleman said he did have some questions regarding a possible appealing of this. Can somebody address that, Director Sumption?
Yeah, so when we send them the notice, after they have not, or when they get their original invoice, it says in that notice that they have 14 days to pay. If they don't pay within that 14 days, then there's a $100 fee. And that there would be a public hearing for them at that point, at a council meeting after that 14-day time period. He had called our office and was talking to Cassandra, and I was actually working with her that day doing some training, and so I told her that go ahead, we won't add that $100 after the 14 days, knowing that his intent was to come here and to try to have the fees waived or reduced or whatever he wanted to do. And so that is why she emailed him that email, telling him about when the meeting would be had, the time, and that we would withhold that $100 additional fee until after this hearing. So as Ms. Fisher said, if tonight you choose to uphold it in full, we would then add the $100 on top of it. So it would be the $675 if it's upheld. I will say typically these fees are done because there are costs involved with it, both for code enforcement, administering the code enforcement program. The additional fee for the $100 is, it's not really, I mean, it's a late fee, but it's also administrative because we are now required to hold a public hearing, publish the notice in the paper, and so we have hard costs involved with that, not just staff time. And then in addition then to do follow up with the county on that, but that's the general.
Right. Thank you for that clarification. I just want to make sure, I don't want to undermine the policy and the procedure that we do have, but I do want to take this gentleman's situation into consideration. He said he has 2 young sons. That's a lot of money. Can you work out a payment plan?
Unfortunately, special assessments are a one-time payment. That is how they are set up. And if they're not paid, then they get assessed to the property, and it goes to the county after 30 days, and it will be a lien on the property.
Okay. And then, Director Fisher, it looks like you have something to add to this.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, if I might. So I agree with your recommendation, Councilman Armstrong, to waive the administrative fee and the late fee because this is a first-time offense. If this were a repeat offender, we'd probably be on our soapbox too. But in this case, I certainly see this as someone that's going to want to address these in a more timely manner. And like Pauline pointed out, even if the funds aren't available right now, they'd be assessed to the property and due at the time of sale.
Okay, I appreciate that. I'll yield. Thank you.
Bill Evans.
So I'm curious, what does waiving this fee bring it down to? I mean, is it a significant reduction?
It would be $525 because all that's been added on is the $50 administrative fee for the code enforcement.
Say that again, so he would have to write a check for how much?
$525.
Okay. I find that to be somewhat ridiculous for this. Now, did anybody knock on this man's door and say, we're going to do this, or speak to him directly so that I mean, they maybe sent him a notice, but I don't know. We're talking about giving 8% raises to some people that are making $160,000, and to me, it just seems like that is, people have forgotten what it's like to not have any money. And this seems kind of ridiculously high to me. So I'd almost be in favor, and maybe somebody here will make a motion if that is what we're all feeling, to bring it way down. I feel this is almost a form of bullying, and when you don't have a lot of money, something like this snowballs into something that really affects your lifestyle, and frankly, I think it's unacceptable for the city to be doing this to its citizens. That's my feeling. Thank you.
Darla Drew.
All right, I'm going to make a motion here that his fees be brought down to $200, if I could get a second. There's a motion, okay, a substitute motion, that his fees be brought down to $200, and I got a second from Bill, and I'd like to keep the floor, if I could.
Okay.
Please, I'd like to speak to the gentleman that this is being assessed. Got a couple questions for you. So how long have you lived in Rapid City?
Since 2017.
Since 2017. And you used to live on the reservation?
Correct.
When you have property on the reservation, are you assessed for when you keep things on your property too long? Does anyone come by and say, hey, clean this up, or you're going to get, you know, you're going to have to pay a bunch of money?
If you live and they have Ogallala Sioux Tribal Housing Authority, where they have cluster housing set up in different communities, they could. It's not really enforced. A lot of junk cars and places on the reservation, that's not really enforced, but most people have their own home and their own land,
Yes.
so that's not really.
Did you understand what was going to happen when you didn't get that stuff out of your yard? Did you understand how much you were going to owe?
No, I didn't.
And here you are, a single dad, and you coach, and you're part of our community. You know, one of the things that we talk about all the time is building bridges with Lakota community and understanding each other.
Right.
And sometimes we don't.
Yeah.
And we don't make, you know, this is a problem of communication. It has been for a long time with our code enforcement. And I've seen it ever since I was here, and I've been here for 8 years, that a lot of people simply don't understand what this means, even though our group here thinks that we're saying it very clearly to you that this is what is going to happen if you don't clean up your yard. Right. You thought you were going to build a tree fort for your boys. No. Somebody else saw it as a mess.
Right.
So I think that 575, 525 is just too much for this kind of, it seems like a confusion, misunderstanding. It's cultural in a way. Yeah. And I think that if we're going to really actually work with Lakota people in our community, then we have to work with them and make it clear what's going on, because it doesn't happen on the reservation.
Right.
So that's my motion, and that is my logic, is that it's too much. You know, I think he can do the $200 and move on with his life and and keep being a coach and keep being a great dad. But sometimes it's hard when you move up from the reservation to understand the rules and regulations of living in Rapid City.
Yeah, I actually went and picked up branches and leaves. I didn't see my future treehouse as the mess. I cleaned my yard, and I didn't.
I get it.
Tell they were picking up.
I get it.
Some of the wood that I even bought. So.
So I've made my my points, and I know we have the finance officer and some other people waiting to speak, but this is one of those bridges, people, that I'm talking about when we're talking about making it very clear to people that move up here from Pine Ridge or Rosebud or Cheyenne, Eagle Butte, you know, we have to have a different conversation, okay? And that's what I feel about this, and that's why I feel he should just pay $200. Thank you.
Thank you.
Colleen Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While I completely can empathize with Mr. Standing Soldier, the $525 is what we are being charged for the services that have been provided. That's nothing extra. That is the bill that we got from the contractor who came and did the cleanup. Now, is it more expensive than if I were to hire somebody on my own to go clean up my yard? Yes, it is. And it is somewhat, I can't think of the term off the, it's supposed to deter it from happening again. In addition, we have a very hard time finding contractors that will do this kind of work for us with little to no notice and put us on the top of their priority. That is an additional reason why they charge the full amount. If we do not request that full amount that the contractor charged us that we have paid, somebody else has to pay for it. That means every other taxpayer in this city is then going to pay the $325 on this one. If anybody else comes forward, we're going to set precedent. We've had veterans come before you asking for their fees to be waived. They have been denied. Or we had one council member pay it for the veteran out of his own pocket. I understand what you're trying to do, and I understand the reasoning behind it, but it's not a good precedent to set, and it's not a very good burden to put on the rest of the taxpayers.
Okay, Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Madam. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You said legal and finance, but and I appreciate what everybody's saying here. And Mr. Standing Soldier, I think I've met you in the past. I appreciate you being a single father, pitching in to coaching the community. I appreciate that. It's a noble cause. One of the things, and I think that Vicki can attest to this, I had this conversation with her on several occasions, that this process to get to this point, it's not just we just come and pick up the trash. There's several notices. They knock on the door, they leave a tag on the door, they send a letter. So there's plenty of opportunity to address that. I'm not sure what happened. I'm not going to go down that road. I have to have some faith in the way that it was handled, that it was correct. There are, unfortunately, only way to get these things done is to hire contractors to do them. The city doesn't have the staff to do them, and that's a whole other conversation for this council up here, because this is just the tip of the iceberg of what she's facing in the code enforcement. Code enforcement is reactionary. They don't come out looking for problems. So someone in your neighborhood called and said, hey, this has been a problem for a while. We're tired of looking at it. That's how this all transpired. The one I do have an issue with, I mean, it's a lot of money to come up with at one time. I wish that we had some sort of payment plan thing. That's why I agreed with waiving the $200. That's something we can give up without having to, go back to the taxpayers for it. I don't know if there's a way. That's a lot of money for one person to come up with to just clean up their yard. I guess push comes to shove, I'd be willing to put my money where my mouth is, and I'll pitch in on helping cover it. But if we can't come up with some sort of payment plan for the fellow or something to help him out, I don't know how we could do that or what we could do. But I understand the logistics of what's happening here. I understand this is not going to be the last time this happens to somebody. But I also understand that there's a big issue coming down the road with the way things are being handled there that Vicki has to deal with on a daily basis. So take some time to get in there and talk to her and figure out what's going on. So I'll yield.
Pat Jones.
Thank you very much, Mayor. We often get accused of not doing anything about code enforcement and why doesn't this get done and why doesn't this get done. And when code enforcement does their job, it's a no-win situation. Mr. Standing Soldier, if I may, what didn't you understand about the process? I guess, can you please tell me when you received notice that you would be fined if you didn't remove it? What didn't you understand about that?
Just what the mess was.
Did you receive any hard copy letters or emails explaining what it was?
There was just one letter in the mail.
Okay. And what did that letter say?
Clean up the yard. You've been notified. I don't have it on me.
Okay, but what was wrong with the letter that you didn't understand it?
What the mess was.
Okay, so you didn't know what the mess was.
Right.
The letter didn't make it clear to you what the mess was.
Right.
Okay. Did you call whoever sent you the letter to try to find out what they were talking about?
No, I had like a bunch of tree branches and leaves in
Okay,
the
do you believe you
backyard.
had a responsibility to try to find out more since you received the letter?
I guess, yeah. I totally take responsibility for it. I'm just here to find out why it was so high, and I'm not, whatever you guys decide is the way it's going to be. I'm just trying to understand and speak from my perspective of, I'm a pretty busy guy, and I said single parent, single income home, and just come down here to see how this works, or if it was
Sure.
a mistake, because it seemed kind of high to me.
Well,
for what
you're
I
being
thought
charged
was-
what the city was charged to have them come clean it
I
up.
understand that now.
We're not making money on it.
I understand that now.
The more we reduce it, the more the taxpayers are going to have to absorb it. And that's a difficult thing for me to swallow as well. So I just struggle with the idea of getting a letter from the city saying that you have a nuisance or something in your yard, and if you didn't understand what it was, why you didn't take the initiative to find out. You just sat back and waited for something to happen.
Actually, I didn't sit back and wait. I cleaned the leaves and the branches out of my yard.
Okay, but this isn't just leaves and branches. This is wood and concrete and other things.
Yeah, but I didn't see that as a mess, so I...
Okay,
yeah.
but since you were notified that it was, then I believe you had a responsibility to reach out to whoever notified you to say, hey, I have a plan for this. This is what I'm going to do. And the people in those offices that work for us would have gladly worked with you and tried to figure something out. We get no joy in sending contractors to have to do this thing and clean it up. Our code enforcement people take a lot of heat for this. So I feel for your situation, and I'm sorry that it happened to you, but I do believe you had a responsibility to at least make a phone call or ask what's going on. I would like to direct a question to Director Fisher, if I may, Mayor, in my remaining time. Can you please give me the timeline as to what took place for the first notification to Mr. Standing Soldier and then the removal of the debris?
I do not have the invoice sitting in front of me today. What I can attest to is that the citation was sent out. It gave a specific date that we would abate after this date, and it clearly said, if you've got questions or would like to discuss further, it gives Matt's phone number and a direct line to his desk so that he could then answer those questions. And again, we try to work with people. If they need a little more time, we will give them that time.
Do you believe it was stated in the letter clearly what the nuisance was?
Yes.
How do you think that would have been worded?
Matt's here today. Can you comment? I hate to take all of your time.
Matt, could you please step up to the podium? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. So just back to that timeline thing real quick, the notice was sent March 15th of this year. He was given until March 25th. So that's 10 days for a debris notice. And it just specifies rubbish.
Mr. Mayor, can we call a point of order here? I think with the motion on the floor and what we're talking about are two different things. I don't think Mr. Standing Soldier is denying that he owes the money. He just didn't understand how it became so high. And I think we're kind of taking a little bit of longitude there to make him feel worse about the situation he's already in. So.
I don't agree with that at all. I think it's important for us to learn the process, and if we're going to decide to support a fee, we need to know.
One second, Mr. Jones. I think Mr. Weifenbach is correct on this point of order. The motion on the table being reducing this to a total of $200 should be cleared off the table before we start going on to the process and whether or not he knew. I think all the points are well taken, and this is the way these always end up, it seems like, but I think in this instance, we have a motion on the table that needs to be addressed more specifically. Anyone have comments about the motion to lower this to a total of $200? Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I understood Mr. Standing Soldier to say that he had some materials that he was going to use to build a treehouse there. He did not understand that that was the items that were being required to be removed. I don't know if he wanted to move it there or if he thought they must be talking about these branches and trees. But I've heard enough in this case that I'm going to vote in favor of the motion. I yield.
You need to say anything, Vicki? You're in the queue.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll keep this short. So just to the topic of notice. Code enforcement is danged if they do and danged if they don't. Either they go too far and we get accused of harassing property owners, or we don't do enough and code enforcement is sitting around doing nothing. In this case, what we have tried to do is to ensure that everyone gets treated fairly and consistently. I really appreciate this gentleman's honesty tonight. He acknowledges getting the citation. He acknowledges that the date that was on it. And in addition, he's here tonight because he didn't pay the fee and is now subjected to an assessment, and that's when he's reached out to you. Just know that we respect whatever decision that you folks make today. He is unique in that I do believe that there was some confusion on his part. I wish he would have called us. We could have worked something out. Thank you.
Okay, I have a question and a bit of information to pass along. First of all, do we have pictures of the mess in the backyard? Matt? No?
No, nothing right now.
Okay. Secondly, while we've been chatting here, the finance officer has been on the phone to the city attorney, who has shown her a path to creating a payment plan for this particular thing. It will be taken off the assessment roll. We'll be able to meet with this individual, see what can be afforded, get an agreement drafted, and then that would be able to be taken care of that way. Okay, so she just informed me of this. And so now, having that information, we'll go keep going. Bill Evans.
I think I heard Ms. Sumption say that if she were lining this up herself, she'd finally probably get somebody else to do it cheaper. I agree. And I think sometimes some of our processes here in this building get a little bit lazy. You got somebody that's going to do it for a price, and that price is good enough. I'm sorry, I just don't find that price to be acceptable. I think it's a ridiculous, almost abusive treatment of one of our citizens. So I'm definitely going to vote in favor of Darla's resolution.
Laura Armstrong.
Quick clarification on the motion, if Ms. Drew could restate that, and then I want to clarify that the payment plan would be towards the 200 or the 525?
My motion is simply that he pay a total of $200, whether that's a payment plan or something you can come up with. That's just how I feel about it, and I made my point that a lot of this, I think, is cultural, and we have to start understanding those things, that we make it very clear in our heads, but it's not really clear with the person you're talking to.
So should this motion pass, how would the city make up the difference to pay the contractor?
It's
It
$300.
would just come out of the general fund.
Yeah, general fund.
Unbudgeted, but we
just
come out of
wanted
the
that
general
stated
fund
for
and we
the record.
reconcile it at the end of the year.
Council contingency, could that be it?
Well, you got other council members trying to spend that.
Are they?
Yeah.
Too bad.
Anyway,
Thank you.
yeah. All right. Folks, motion on the floor is to reduce Mr. Standing Soldier's total bill to $200. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Roll call, please.
Jones?
No.
Lehman?
No.
Solomon? Evans? Drew?
Aye.
Nordstrom?
No.
Wyffenbach? Stroman? Armstrong? Motion passes 5-4.
Thank you.
Will I be getting a new statement in the mail? Or how would I like to take care of the?
You can just stop down at the city finance office during office hours, 7:30 to 5, and then I'll make sure that the invoice is adjusted.
Thank you.
Okay. To the council members, we have closed the comment period for consent items. We've acted on all the other consent items, but there's a member of the audience, Mark Millar.
Mr. Mayor, no. Now we need to approve this resolution as amended, please.
19, approve resolution 2022-041, a resolution levying assessment for abatement of nuisances as amended.
Move to approve.
Motion to approve by Drew, second by Nordstrom. All in favor of that motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No. Motion passes with 1 no for Mr. Jones. Okay, now to the council members, we're through the consent items. The public hearing item is closed. There's a member of the audience who'd like to speak on item 14. I'm going to leave it up to the council whether or not they want to reopen that and let this individual speak or move on. So is there any objection on the council? Item 14, which was approved under consent. Any objection from the council from letting Mr. Millar speak on item 14, an item that's already been handled? Mark Millar. Okay, you're in.
Thank you. I'd like to commend the city on their contractors showing up and mowing the lot across the street from Mr. Lehman yesterday. I think that was the first time it was mowed this year, and the alfalfa would have been great to make money off of. My question about your coal, are the employees of the Civic Center getting that raise? That's my question. Do these employees at the Civic Center qualify for the citywide raise?
Yes.
Good, because they are the cheapest paid employees in the city, correct?
I don't know that.
I think, aren't you guys still hiring them at $9.75? Well, good, I'm glad that you answered that. And then I'd like to commend you on your speech this evening, Mayor. You talked about the boll weevil in Alabama and creating a monument to the things that brought the attention of that city to change their direction. And I think this is what our monument will look like here in Rapid City when we put it downtown. You're all safe. This is the Gorilla Tape, and it won't come off. These items will not hurt you. But what we've got going in Rapid for our monument is broken glass, 1-ounce whiskey bottles, and drinking in the streets. Thank you.
Nothing. Okay, that takes us through consent for reals. Now into non-consent items, items 39 through 47. There are no speaker requests on these items, so there won't be a public hearing or a public comment period. So we'll start under ordinances with item 39. First reading ordinance 6540, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code. A request by Long Branch Civil Engineering for Muth Holdings LLC for a rezoning request from low-density residential district 2 to medium-density residential district for property generally described as being located north of Catron Boulevard between Wellington Drive and Tartan Court. Motion to approve Solomon, second by Jones. All in favor of approval of item 39 say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 40, first reading ordinance 6541, an ordinance amending section 17.06 of chapter 17 of the Rapid City Municipal Code, a request by Aaron Shaw for a rezone request from general commercial district to medium density residential district for property generally described as being located at 731 Franklin Street. Motion to approve by Jones, second by Lehman. All in favor of approval, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 41, first reading of ordinance 6542 regarding supplemental appropriation number 2 for 2022. Motion by Drew to approve. Second by Lehman. All in favor of approval of item 41, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public Works Committee items, item 42, authorize staff to advertise for bids, Fire Station number 1 improvements, project 2612. Open for motions. Motion to approve Solomon, second by Jones. Go to Bill Evans.
I want to make it clear to everybody why I did vote against this. I still think we have a flawed review process with all major projects. And I believe the one I propose where we always have a review before the council votes on approving the final funds to go out to bid or anything like that. We should see the blueprints, we should see the plans and see if it matches what we had in mind when we approved the projects months earlier. I think if you explore, this is the standard way of doing things to review it at universities, at most cities. The analogy I would use is you tell your daughter, here's the credit card, go buy a practical car, and she comes back with a Ferrari, and you say, that wasn't what I had in mind. Just because she came back with that does not mean you have to accept it. So I think we need to add this into our standard process for all big public works projects. We should have them sitting over in the room for review, so people can look at them for 2 weeks and say, why are you doing that? Why didn't you think of this? I think you'll find that most cities do that. So I just want to explain why I voted against that. And we did get the plans to look at after I brought this up. So I want to thank the chief for doing that. Thank you.
Richie Nordstrom.
Thank you, Mayor. With all due respect to my esteemed colleague, Councilman Emrys, I think this would delay the process tremendously. And if there's public comments that we start seeing that on a project, then what do? It's only going to delay a project, and this one is definitely overdue for a project that needs to be done last year, the year before. So as far as putting another step into the process, I would urge my colleagues to have any questions about the design or the planning. They can certainly visit, in this case, with the chief to take an opportunity to take a review of the plans if there is one available. And I think there's also a security issue as well. So when the public starts taking a look at some of these plans, where do you draw the line for a security issue? So I hope you will take that in consideration with this advertisement for bids, because it just, in my mind, it just slows the process down. In this case, we need to move forward promptly. Thank you, Mayor. I yield.
Ron Weifenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I'm going to direct a question to Chief Culberson.
Yes, please.
Thank you. Chief, when I did spend probably almost 5 to 6 hours in your office reviewing the plan. Now, has something changed since I've been there, though?
From those original drawings or original renditions, no, not really. Not from basic concept on what the building looks like. Flooring's changed a couple times, some other pieces. And when you get into that building and start interfacing two buildings together, of course, the HVAC and
right, and then that was some of my concerns was when I get that part, and I also understand what Alderman Evans is talking about with input. I don't think there's any safety issues here. I think the public is challenged to pay for this, so they're going to pay for it. But I'm comfortable voting on it because I did spend almost a full day with you going over those plans, and if they haven't changed, I'm good with that part. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor for approval of item 42. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Community development items, item 43. A request by Renner Associates LLC for Larry Tuber for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 1RA, Lot 1RB, and Lot 4R of Spring Canyon Estates, generally described as being located northwest of the intersection of Clarkson Road and Pioneer Circle, and south of the intersection of Pathfinder Place and Pioneer Circle. And the recommendation from committee is to approve with stipulations. Okay, we have a motion to approve from Drew. Second from Lehman to approve with stipulations. On item 43, Greg Stroman.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to abstain from voting on this item.
Okay. Thank you. All in favor then of approval of item 43, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries with one person abstaining, Councilmember Stroman. Item 44, request by KTM Design Solutions for BH Keppel LLC for a preliminary subdivision plan for proposed lots 2 through 11 of Block 2, lots 1 through 25 of Block 3, lots 2 through 48 of Block 4, lots 17 through 36 of Block 5, lots 3 through 18 of Block 9, drainage lot of Shepherd Hills South subdivision, generally described as being located north of East Anamosa Street, south of East Philadelphia Street, and again, the recommendation is to approve with stipulations. Move approval with stipulations. Okay, motion to approve with stipulations by Jones and a second by Drew. All in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Alcoholic beverage license renewals. Item 45, approve the attached list of the 2022-2023 alcohol renewals per verification through the Rapid City Police Department and Rapid City Fire Department. Move approval. Motion to approve by Pat Jones. Second by Richie Nordstrom. All in favor of approval of 45, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Staff items. Item 46, approve resolution 2022-056, a resolution authorizing mayor and finance director to sign a corrected resolution number 2022-026 and 027. Let's take 46 and 47 at the same time. Okay, motion to approve by Nordstrom. Second, anybody? Second by Evans. Okay, the motion is to approve item 46 and 47, authorizing the mayor and finance officer to sign corrected resolutions 2022-026 and 2022-027. All in favor of approving those two items, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Public hearing items 48, 49. There are no speaker requests on these items, so we will forego the public hearing, public comment. We'll go to consent public hearing item, one item 48. Will there be a motion on the consent item? Motion to approve by Drew, second by Evans. All in favor of approving item 48, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That's the end of the public hearing calendar. The non-consent public hearing items, item 49, a request by KTM Design Solutions for 605 Storage LLC for a comprehensive plan amendment to the major street plan for property generally described as being located at 3276 and 3300 Campbell Street. Okay, we have a motion from Lehman to acknowledge the withdrawal of the application by the applicant and a second by Weifenbach. All in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. And we have the bill list, so we'll go to Finance Director Pauline Sumption.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There are no additions to the bill list, so the total is that which is attached at $8,761,698.15.
Motion to approve, Solomon. Second, Jones. All in favor of approving the bill list, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Motion to adjourn by Jones, second by Weifenbach. Anyone object? We're adjourned, everyone. Thank you.